Namaste. Welcome, beautiful souls. Hi, everybody. My name is Sadhana. I am an intuitive reader and healer. So let me scoot over so you can see me. And I want to welcome you to my deck deep dive series. This is a series that started some time ago. And oddly, perhaps, I decided to create a collection of series called Hanged Man decks. And the reason I called this series Hanged Man decks was because I felt that there are quite a few decks out there that really do take some time to get to know. And they look at life through a very deep and sometimes perplexing lens. And so that was just the title that I chose for this series. And so I've also added the hashtag Tarot Deep Dives. And we are into, I don't know which number deck this is, but we are starting the journey with the Herbcrafter. The Herbcrafter today. And today is a public video. And I want to let you know that this Tarot Deep Dive series has now become a members only feature. And the reason for that has to do with my ability to speak freely, as well as connect with you in the chat and not have to monitor the chat. So that's why I decided to make it a members only feature. But today everyone is welcome. And we're going to start our journey today with the Curanderas. And it might seem a little odd to start a deep dive of a deck with the Kings, but I will get into that in just a moment about why we're starting with the Curanderas. I want to talk a little bit about the energy of the deck itself, the creation of the deck, and just do a little bit of background there as well too. But first of all, I want to acknowledge Damiana and Michelle Lynn. Damiana, I will get to your email. I'm sorry I have not yet responded, but I will set that time up for you very soon. And if there is anyone else watching the replay who is a Rose Quartz member who has not checked in for their Rose Quartz check-in anytime recently, please make sure to send me an email, okay? And hello to Christina. Welcome to you. It's lovely to have you here. I will see if I can keep this table still. Sorry, sometimes I feel like I'm vibrating like crazy. All right, so the Herbcrafter's Tarot. Some of you may be familiar with Joanna Powell Cuthbert. She is the creator of the Gaian Tarot. And this is a collaborative effort between Joanna and Letitia Guthrie. Letitia Guthrie is, I suppose, a mentor for Joanna Colbert in the herb crafting field, and the two of them got together to create this deck, which came out in 2019. I am not sure how long it took them to put the deck together. There is a wonderful website connected to the deck, and I believe that is linked in the description box below. There are not too many mass market decks that have a website, so this is other than something that is connected to the publisher. So that's a great feature of this deck. It has an excellent guidebook, and of course I will be referring to it. I am not a botanical specialist by any means. I have one daughter who has studied Chinese medicine, and so I worked with her a lot in foraging, and she's taught me so much about making teas and tinctures, and she makes her own toothpaste. There's so many amazing things that she has created for me over the years: balms, salves, things like that. Okay, so yeah, I do know a little bit. There's just a few things I want to share with you in case anybody watching has not seen this deck before or does not have it in hand. There's just a few amazing key lines in the guidebook that I wish to share. Hello, Nancy, welcome. Joanna says, we encourage a return to a gift of economy, and a culture of reciprocity, and a respect for each other and our beloved Mother Earth. I should have put that into a banner. That is just such a beautiful invitation into this deck. I'm going to read it again. We encourage a return to a gift. I read it wrong. Let's read it again. We encourage return to a gift economy, a culture of reciprocity, and a respect for each other and our beloved Mother Earth. I just think that's so beautiful. A Herbcrafter, or an Herbcrafter, depending on where you are in the world, is a lover of the botanical world, one who interacts in every way with the botanical world. And that doesn't necessarily mean all the ways. Herbcrafters have been known by lots of different names, including Hedge Witch, which is the title of one of my other favorite botanical decks. And I think one of the clever things they have done in this deck is to associate each of the minor suits with several different layers and levels. And as we go through the cards, I will be referring to these different things. But there are different types of medicines associated with each of the suits. And what I was saying here is that the Herbcrafter may not necessarily be involved in all of these medicines. They might just be involved in one or more. So these include, specifically for the suit of fire, the alchemy of Herbcraft. So in the fire suits, we have very busy scenes where they are busy creating potions and tinctures and things like this. So this would be an active kitchen where things are being made and hands are very busy. In the suit of water, they're making medicines for water-based medicines. So this would include infusions, water infusions, bath, things in the bath, teas and so forth, right? Teas are a really important part of herb crafting. And in the suit of air, this is really beautiful. So the medicine for the suit of air is, she refers to it as noticing. The power of observation. So being able to witness the plants and learn from the plants. And I think another really important aspect of the suit of air is listening. If you believe the plants can hear and also the plants speak to you, this is the suit through which we will look at clairaudient qualities that may be picked up in working with plants, and also with communication with plants. It's such an important thing. But I really like that also the observation. That is an important part of this. And through observation, it also taps into, of course, our knowledge base and our wisdom. So that's really beautiful. And then for the suit of earth, this is something that's very hands-on. So we're making tools, we're making legacy tools that will be passed on from generation to generation. There is also the making of gifts, baskets, fiber arts, and so forth. So this is one of many layers to each of the suits. And so the Herbcrafter is one who is very much involved with the plants. Her approach is driven by a playful, wild spirit. And while the pronoun she is used throughout this deck, there may very well be Herbcrafters who are not she's. So I think I'm going to switch the pronoun to they. Okay. The Herbcrafter embraces the plant world as her teacher. And to me, that has been one of my greatest lessons. I have had massive experiences. I remember the first time I was messing around with Devil's Club and ended up falling down a retaining wall. You know, the plants teach us a lot. And I think that is an important part of listening and experiencing the plants. This is not just about making medicine. The Herbcrafter embraces the plant world as her teacher and friend through observation and botany, gardening and wildcrafting, medicine and kitchencraft, fiber arts and weaving, art and magic. And she recognizes herself as part of nature. And I think this is an important point that distinguishes one who is dabbling and slightly uncomfortable from one who is fully immersed in their practices. So if the more time you spend in nature, the more time you spend connecting with plants, this could mean one plant per season. You go out, you get to know it, you see it in its stages, you touch it, maybe you get stung by it, there's some other perhaps a pollinator that makes contact with you. And it's about experiencing and becoming one with the plants. And this is how we also learn to listen more carefully. And welcome to Joseph as well too. Through a relationship with the botanical world, she learns how plants and people can be of service to one another. And I think this too would speak to those Herbcrafters who teach about reciprocity and the importance of, especially when we're foraging, about the not taking more than you need principle, not taking more than you can use. Over harvesting, of course, is a huge issue. And so we want to be really mindful with that. But as we'll see with the coriander of earth, the coriander of earth, some plants will only flourish if they are harvested. And I'm sure you've experienced that as well in your own garden, whether this is wild herb crafting or these are plants you have put into your own garden, right? So some plants do thrive the more you cut them. So that is that's an important part. There's one other thing I thought I would talk about, and that is the energy of hands. You can see some hands in the cards down here. So what is it about the perspective of hands that is so important in this deck? And why do we not see the faces? We see a little bit of the bodies. Sometimes we'll see a tattoo on an arm, or we'll see adornment on the arm or the hands. But we don't see the body and we don't see the face. The hands are the way that the Herbcrafter connects to the plant world. Whether they are cutting or foraging, whether they are creating. And even through observation, there might be this sense of, with photography. Or one thing I often do is I have an app, a plant identification app on my phone. And so part of my power of observation is using that plant identifier, to make sure I have the right plant, the right species, and connecting with it that way. So that also, I would include that in power of observation. And so the hands are an important part of connecting to that. And then, of course, on a deeper level, the hands are connected to the heart. And without this ability to use the hands, it's such an amazing thing that we have, and what we can do with the hands. I know there are people who live without hands, and while I am in awe of their skills, there's just something really special about the gift of hands. So we see the hands that are connected to the heart, and also the hands that are an important part of giving, receiving, and giving. And if you've listened to me talk before, this is a really important part of who I am as a yogi. It's an important part of balance. And this being a nature-based deck, reciprocity is a very big theme that will come up again and again. Okay. So today we're going to look at the 4 Curandera card. And if there are words that I mispronounce, it is from my lack of experience. Letitia has a connection to, it's interesting because Joanna describes it as there is a light emphasis on Letitia's Mexican American heritage and a light emphasis on Celtic heritage. So it's interesting choosing that word light for that description. So the practices are loosely based on these two heritages. And I have heard people suggest that they would love to have a Herbcrafter tarot from their own region. And yes, this deck is based on two environments in the United States. One is the Pacific Northwest, where Joanna Powell Colbert lives. Pacific Northwest is the northwest of the U.S. Very similar plants grow where I am. I am in the southwestern part of British Columbia, Canada. And the other part is the Sonoran Desert, which is southwest US. So the Baja, a little bit Southern California, and also northwest Mexico. So we do see quite a bit of desert in this deck as well too. So those are the two habitats that are primarily included in this deck. Yeah. I would love to also just mention this, how the art is created. And I think it's lovely that they refer to this as the daughter of the Gaian Tarot. Yeah. It was just kind of a natural extension of the Gaian Tarot. So this art, Joanna photographs these scenes. So these scenes are created and photographed. And then she takes pencil crayons and colors the photographs. And if you go to the Gaian Tarot website, there is tremendous detail about her process and how she does this. And it was through this particular website that I purchased a very large set of Prisma color pencil crayons, and absolutely love them. I see Damiana already has a question. I wonder how you feel about the elemental correspondences assigned to herbs. I have worked with Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs. I noticed that they don't always match up. Yes. And I have to say, so Damiana, this has been an issue for me. I remember in Rebecca Lefebvre's decks. So avec la vie, the flora healing and fauna inspiration, those decks. Also, we've had some discussion next hour. I'm going to carry on talking about cosmovisions. So this happens with animals. It happens with plants. For some reason, this is not a universal principle. The way that elements are associated with plants. And so I will address it with individual plants, especially where I have experience. Yeah. So what I could do over time, over the weeks, is kind of take a tally and just see how, because right off the bat, the first card we're going to talk about, I have a very different association. So, but I want to be open to their interpretations. I think that's important. To let a deck be its own deck. Sometimes that can be very challenging, because if we're going to work with the deck in its if we're going to work with the deck as it was intended, then it's important to accept it as it is. Okay, so we're going to start with Rosemary, and also I want to address the tool that's in the background. And this is so the bowline is referred to as a white-handled tool that is used in Wicca. It's used by the Herbcrafter to collect herbs. Very like the atham as well too would be another tool. And I actually researched the pronunciation of this word and it's pronounced so many different ways. So we will see this tool throughout the suit of air, and there are tools associated with each of the suits. Notice the faded tattoo that is on her arm. So the Curanderas are the healers. They are the most mature, most experienced members of the community as far as healing goes. Another point that was made was that these plants in these cards are very accessible. They are well established. They're also very beneficial to older people. While they're useful to everyone, they're particularly beneficial to older people. And I thought that was interesting as well, too. I feel very much with these 4 cards, there is a sense of deep, soulful connection with the plants. So Rosemary. So the Curandera of air. Now, I have placed these in the order that they are described in the guidebook. For the most part, Joanna describes this deck air, fire, water, and earth. So she is switching up the Tetragrammaton order, which is the basis of the RWS deck. However, there's a couple of places. So when the suits are introduced, the suit of fire is introduced first. So there's a bit of, I want to say, discombobulation as far as this goes. I don't think that this was thought through completely or even discussed. So, yeah. Joseph has had this deck in the cart several occasions, but I've never pulled the trigger because I thought it was too non-tarot-like. Okay. So Rosemary, let's just start with that. And I'm sure there's lots of things I'm going to go back and forth with. Rosemary here. In the bottom, on the bottom of each page, there are suggestions for how to connect with it. And one of my favorite things that she says is, have you ever done this? I've done this with lavender and both rosemary because they're both quite sturdy. You walk by it, you run your hand up the plant, and then you take your hand and you just breathe it in. It has this potent medicine that lingers on your hands for quite a bit of time. And that's just really powerful. There, this is, she knows, so the Curandera knows that the medicine of rosemary enhances cognitive function. Her mind is sharp and quick, and she talks very little. She understands that words have wings. She is a wonderful listener, and she says, tell me more, right? So she's one of those great communicators who will be open to listening. And I suppose if you ask, she will share, right? So an excellent communicator in that regard. People are drawn to her honesty. So she talks directly. And just as rosemary clears the mind, her counsel brings clarity and inspires peace. So one of the troubles I think people have with this deck is they try to cross-associate it with what a Queen of Swords energy might be. So the energy of this particular card feels of a very high frequency of a Queen of Swords. There's a tremendous amount of peace and a deep connection with spirit. So that intellectual, perhaps an aggressive tongue, some of the divorcee, the negative sides of the Queen of Swords doesn't fit here at all, right? This is what I just said. Now, what Damiana addressed was where we might associate the herbs in another way. What I was taught about rosemary is that it is connected to the heart. And so here we are connecting it to the mind, to wisdom. And I have to laugh because in yoga, the element of the chakra, the heart chakra, is air. And we were this was part of, we did this on many different occasions, but there is a practice, a medicine wheel practice. This is where you create a sand painting, you create a mandala in the earth. And one of the important parts of that tradition is to, each time you go back to it, you feed it. And there's a few different herbs that are recommended for that. And we want to connect our heart and our soul to the plant. And so rosemary was one that I used all the time. And you put a little bit of rosemary in your hands, and then you rub it just to get the essential oils activated. And then you open your hands, and then you use your breath and blow it into the sand painting. So I have always connected this to the heart, and I guess that fits, right? Because it is the element of air in the chakra system. And Damiana suggested that it was connected to fire. I would not connect it to fire. And I suppose that might be because of its pungent flavor. But I'm really interested to know why, or what your association of fire would be. Okay, so the Curanderas are healers, and Michelle Lynn asks if they're more kings or queens. I don't even want to go there, Michelle, because the queen, the one that's associated with queens, are mothers, and these are more of a nurturing quality. So I think we have to let this deck and let the medicine, the energy of each of the courts be what they are. So these are the Curanderas, these are the healers. These are the wise, mature, older women traditionally. And it is through their wisdom and through their practices that all of these experiences exist. Oh, there's one other lovely phrase I want to share with you. And that was something at the beginning of the Curandera section. They are the keepers of the elements, but that's not what I wanted to read. This was somewhere else. So early on in the guidebook, this is on page 9, Joanna, I'm not sure who, I'm saying Joanna, but it could be Letitia. I'm not sure who wrote the guidebook. The court card names represent the archetypes of each woman as she matures. So the Hia would become an Adalita, who would become a Madre, who would become a Curandera. So this is even more extensive than Maiden, Mother, Crone, right? So this is more of that particular energy. She matures, as she matures into her craft, from wanderer to warrior to midwife to teacher. So I thought that was useful information as well. Okay, so let's go on to the Curandera. I always want to put an extra syllable in there, and I'm sorry if I'm messing this up. To Damiana. And this is not a plant with which I am familiar, but I have to say, this is a great card. This is a really empowering card. And this is a super passionate card. This is about feeling your fire, feeling your passion at a point in your, what do I want to say? This to me, this is such an encouraging card. While I am a crone, I want to say I'm a junior crone. While I am a junior crone, I love that. And my hands don't look too different from the hands in the card as far as the amount of loose skin and wrinkles go. But the message of this is about, Ooh, feminine energy, feminine power energy. Every single symbol in this card is connected to the sacral chakra. Okay, so where'd my little chopstick go? This deck, this deck is so exciting. I'm so glad we're doing this, because also this is giving me time to spend do a little more research with each of the symbols to see what they represent. So she talks about the voluptuous mermaid that's sitting here on the table. She talks about the choice of the what is burning in the cauldron here, the effect of Damiana, and just even the shape of the agate geode here. So everything on this table points to the power of feminine energy. And while I suppose that we could associate it with sexual energy, it's so much more than that. It's just a dynamism. You know, when you see women who are in their complete power, they have a twinkle in their eye. They know so much. And so this is that card of great passionate inner knowing, and it's just full of a zest for passion, a zest for sexuality, a zest for being a woman. And in its if you were reading this deck as a man, or you were reading for a man, I feel that the power of this deck would be to awaken one's receptivity, to dial. And so if you were, I could see this as you have a querent that comes to the table, and and this has happened actually quite a few times recently. So people are struggling with their left brain occupation. They are in finance. They are in IT. They are a doctor, like they're a surgeon or something. And they're struggling because something is calling to them to step into and I'll use the word divine feminine, but their receptivity, their lunar side. So I could see using this deck as a way to bring something out. Now, this might not necessarily happen with a male querent, but this could also happen to, somebody who is professional, a female professional who is struggling with, and I've also done this with, there was one querent last week, and she just, it was so hard for her. And this is the kind of deck that really speaks to that, because it kind of like draws out the feminine energy. All right. And then, so I can't comment on this particular plant because I haven't worked with it, but I do say I really like this card. This is another suit in which I am immensely comfortable. And the plant here is kelp. And the verb, I want to go back to these verbs. So this one is observation. So noticing, this one is creating, this one is nourishing. And I have to say, this is on every level. This feels so powerful to me. I have a lot of fire in my chart. So perhaps intuitively, this has been an element that I've spent the most time connecting with, and I feel the greatest ease with. So here we see a bath, and there is kelp, among other things, in the bathtub as a calming and healing influence. We also see the ocean in the background. There's a mermaid here. There's shells. And this is the tool, the kettle is the tool of the suit for the suit of water. So the Curandera of water infuses, hello, Meg. Mel, my bad. Welcome, Mel. Infuses the water with various herbs and plants in different ways. So this would include like making spritzers, tinctures, any kind of water medicine. Let's go to Michelle's comment here. I was talking to my husband who's from Panama, and he thought it was interesting that she used the female curandera when male curanderos are common as well. The whole that is interesting because I'm sure I've shared with you about my shamanic studies, and the lineage that I studied with was from Peru, and almost all of the curanderos is not a word that they referred to themselves as. The word was oh my goodness, I can't think what it is, but they were mostly men as well too. Yeah. So this deck is in a female tradition, so it's very thank you, Mel. It's funny, you know what? I get called so my given name is Susan. I get called Sharon all the time. I don't know why. Strangers, people who know me who are fully aware of my name call me Sharon. It's so funny. Yeah. Okay. What else do I see here? I see beeswax tapers around the bath as well too, and beeswax. There's also beeswax soap here. So one of the things in these cards is I want to start to look at the crossover of elements, and part of my puzzle that I will build with this deck is pulling together the cards, because I'm sure we're going to see, there's a beeswax candle here. I'm sure all these candles are going to be beeswax candles, maybe soya candles. But I don't think soy is native to the States. Not sure. I'll have to do some research there. Forgot where I was going. Oh, yes. So I want to also pay attention to other cards that have sprigs of rosemary in them, for example, or other cards that have bits of agate. And this is something that I like to do, is to start to weave this web together. And I have done small readings with this deck. I've only used it for myself, but I'm intrigued to also expand my use of this deck beyond connecting deeper with my own herb crafting. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to Sweetgrass. So the Curandera of Sweetgrass. I was talking about the hands and how important the hands are, and you'll notice that we do see the hands. We see the hands in all of, we see one hand in this one, in all of the cards. And the connection of heart and hand is an important part of what's happening in these pictures. It's that all that is being collected, created, blended, woven is from the heart. And so this whole deck is infused with heart. That's kind of what I feel. And the more, and here's another story. So I've learned so much from my yogic practices and time spent at both the ashram in British Columbia as well in India. And there is there at the ashram, no food is made before each meal by hands. And the idea that we don't have time to prepare a meal is inconceivable to a true yogi, because through the hands, the heart is put into the food. The energy of the human is put into the food. And so when we purchase pre-made food, when we dine out, there is less heart, less energy in the food. And so all of the creations in this deck are infused with heart, infused with love. And I just think that's really beautiful. And yes, I eat out, and yes, I do purchase some prepared food. There's certain things that I love that are prepared by others. And I don't infuse Reiki into all of my food. But I try to be mindful of that. Okay. So here we have Sweetgrass in the suit of earth. And I want to read the poem at the top of this particular one because it's so beautiful. The living earth is our greatest teacher. Braid together health and wealth. Braid together love, health, and wealth. Then give it away. Let a holy fragrance bring you home. And I absolutely love that. And I remember when my daughter gifted me this sweet grass braid that I've got up here at the top of the table. And there's just something really special about that level of connection. Those of you that have watched me for a while know I love Outlander. And there's this one scene when they are out collecting the taxes. It's one of the early episodes. And Claire sits down with some women at a table who are walking the wool. And they're singing a song, and their strong hands are walking the wool. And there's just something about that level of energy of putting your energy, putting your hands into making something. And I love that, the intention. Imagine if you braided, it's like using a mala, right? Imagine if you braided all of your braids, you just repeated love, health, wealth, or whatever your mantra was, whatever you wanted to infuse it with. I just think that is so incredible. I love it. Love, love, love it. When we share the sweetness of life with another, all may thrive. When we share the sweetness of life with other, all may thrive. So this is about, infusing the things that we share with love. And we can see that the hands, the hat, there's the faded tattoo. So all of these curanderas are definitely very mature women. These are crowns. These are, I want to say, all of them would be amazing listeners and teachers in their own specialty. So, yeah, it's beautiful. I want to highlight Joseph's comment. It's a very special experience to eat a home cooked meal that has been, and there's a certain quality of our feeling in the kitchen. There's a different vibe when people are rushing to get dinner on the table as opposed to enjoying the preparation, and it's an amazing experience. So here we are. These are our first 4 cards of the Herbcrafters Tarot. And I haven't quite decided which direction I'm going to go. There is a connection of the Curanderas with the 7s, and I thought maybe I would hop over to the 7s next week. I may go to the majors, or we might just complete all of the courts first. I need to give it a little more thought, but I will get that thumbnail up soon once I make that decision. So I hope that you can join us on this journey with this deck and enjoy the medicine, the creating, the listening, as much as I will. Yeah. Blessings to you all, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. Namaste.